What is one memory that never fails to make you smile every time you think about it? My mom would sing and dance in the kitchen every Sunday morning when I was growing up. Times were always tough and money was always tight, but my mom always made sure we were happy and healthy. One particular day, when I was 8, I was woken up by the sound of Gloria Gaynor's I Will Survive blasting through the house and my mom singing off key. As I walked to the kitchen, the smell of chorizo and eggs filled the air, and there I saw her. My mom, who only a few days earlier looked so miserable with her life, was dancing her heart out with a spatula in hand. When she passed away 7 years later, I cried every time I thought of her, except for this memory. This is the only memory that got me through her death. It not only makes me smile every time I think of it, but it's my favorite memory of all time, because I'm so lucky to remember her for who she was. Edit. I was given the Gold Award. Thank you so much, kind stranger. It's my first. And wow, this is getting a lot of upvotes too. Thank you all. You were 15 when she passed? Oh honey, I am sorry. I am glad you have great memories of her. Hold on dearly to them. They will get you through LaFleur's miseries too. When my friend got hit in the face with a piece of broccoli at a hibachi restaurant. Not to shit on Everyone's beautiful stories on this thread, but there is something really hilarious about this slapstick moment. It is like Ayami firstborn's first steps, Ayami wedding, Ayami dog's puppies, and then he broccoli fire. Thinking about my cat, Cricket, and how he loved hanging out with me in my garage, like he was my assistant working on the car, or sat with me during rainstorms. He was so much fun. I love Cricket's name. Also I love Cricket, he seems pretty great. He was the best cat ever. He passed away at age 6. I wish he had more time on earth. At least he was loved in both life and afterwards. I did arts and crafts. Story time. etc. as a volunteer at the children's hospital. Definitely when my favorite kid found a bone marrow donor. They have a large golden bell at the front of the ward that kids ring when they finish chemotherapy. She hadn't finished yet, but she just went up to the bell and karate chopped it. I drunkenly signed up as a bone marrow donor last night. I secretly really hope it works out and I actually help someone. One of the better drunk decisions. Nice man. About a year ago, was in a discount grocery store. I had about $20 left after bills and rent, so was having to carefully pick what to buy. In the end, after umming and ahhing for a couple of minutes over whether I could afford to spend $6 on coffee, I put it back on the shelf and went to the register. As I'm walking out OFD the shop, I hear a woman call after me, "Young man, you forgot this." I turn around and she thrusts the jar of coffee into my bag. I go to protest and she cuts me off saying, "I remember what it was like, not having enough money and having to go without. You take that coffee and enjoy it, mate." The biggest smile on her face. She was like a beacon of light during one of my darkest times. And I always remember her. With every cup of coffee I can't help but smile. Because now each cup reminds me there are truly good people in the world. I have told this story on here before, but I used to work for a landscaping company cutting grass in industrial parks. One day I was cutting a huge piece of lawn after a light rain and stirred up a bunch of bugs. Some swallows must have noticed and went on a sort of feeding frenzy all around me for like 1/2 hour. I would be riding along and a bird would swoop what felt like inches from my head and then spiral all around to catch more bugs. After watching them for a minute or so, I knew they would not crash into me. So it was like being given a private air show. They called you the Swallow Man. Hey, I've seen that on NVM. But yeah, I've seen that. I worked as a homeless street outreach worker for a couple years. My coworker and I saw a guy standing near a river. We felt something wasn't right and parked. My coworker and I convinced the person that killing themselves isn't worth it. A few weeks later that person confronted my coworker and thanked him for being there that night. That person had found an apartment and felt that their life was finally gotten on track. A man called Marcus saved my boyfriend while I was on the phone trying to talk him down from a bridge. At that time my boyfriend and I were doing long distance. He was on a work trip in a different town to where he lives. It was 4 AM. And he was so drunk he didn't know where he was except for high up on a bridge over water. I hope you know the lives you impact. Don't just stop at the people you had face-to-face experiences with. I don't think I'll ever meet Marcus, but I'll never ever forget him. If you have any stories, please share them in the comments section below. My first time coming home from college. I was worried my dog would forget me while I was gone. But when I walked through the door, she lost her shit. I've never felt so loved and relieved. Dogs never forget. They're the best. I think of my dog that we had for 14 years. But the last 3 years of her life she lived a while away with my aunt as we moved and could not have pets. I visited as often as I could, but with work and school, it was difficult. I remember I was at a job interview and walked out of it feeling like I killed it, then looked at my phone and had damn near 50 missed calls from family. I called back and was told they were putting my dog down that day. I ran straight to the train station and got on so many trains to get to her. I had not seen her in about a year at this point, which breaks my heart. Even though it had been a year and she was so old and unwell. The second I walked through that door she came to me. I could see it exhausted her to walk over and she lay at my feet. She gave herself a push against my legs, so she was on her back and could get belly rubs. My aunt said she had been behind the sofa all day refusing to get out, but as soon as I walked through the door, apparently she lit up, and it was the first time her tail wagged in a couple of days. I stayed with her as long as I could, then she had to go. But I'll always treasure that last memory of her and how even in her last moments, she still had so much love for me. The last afternoon I spent with my grandma. She was such a firecracker, always joking around and giving people the bird. We had a great time. Just the two of us. She passed away in September 2019. About 2 months after her husband. I miss them both, but thinking about that last afternoon with her always makes me smile. That sounds so nice. My grandma passed away Tuesday, and I was unable to go tell her bye or anything because of virus. It made the funeral very frustrating not being able to hug anyone. My dad was retired military when I was pregnant with my son. He came to stay at my house near my due date. Things start happening and off we go to the hospital. My husband driving me in his car, and my brother and dad following in their car. I had a truly horrible and very long contraction right before we got to the hospital. So my husband calls my dad to tell him the new plan. He was going to grab a wheelchair for me, and then my dad was going to take me in to get admitted while the other two parked the cars. So we get out of the cars, and I'm sobbing, leaning on my dad while waiting for the wheelchair. He asks me if I'm okay. I think just as a reflex. Obviously I say no. I can barely focus through the pain, and this is not a light, delicate tear slowly rolling down my cheek situation. So the wheelchair comes, and I get in it. My dad starts pushing and hauls ass through the doors, where I see there is a line of people waiting to check in at the front desk. Dad doesn't even attempt to wait in line. He goes directly to the side of the desk as fast as he can push my fully pregnant self. He doesn't look like he's planning on stopping for the little old lady who's being helped. So I put my feet out to stop the wheelchair and prevent her from being hit. Luckily she doesn't take very long, and my dad soon pushes me up a little further to talk to the woman behind the desk. Hi, yeah. My daughter is in labor. She needs to be checked in right away. Okay sir, we can do that. We just need some ID from you. Now at this point, he's behind me, so I can't see him. But the contraction is finally starting to subside, so I'm calming down a little bit. But I can hear the disgust dripping from his voice when he says, "She's about to have a baby and you're worried about my ID." She tells him yes, she doesn't need anything from me, but she does need to make a quick ID sticker for him. So logically the next thing he says is, "Okay fine. Here's my driver's license, military ID, credit cards. What else do you need? Can we go now?" While emptying his entire wallet and tossing random cards on the desk. My dad was a career military man, and I have rarely seen him lose his cool. But the memory of him losing his shit and trying to help while I was in pain always makes me smile. He died recently and I really miss him. I'm sorry for your loss. One time my brother said something funny while I was eating cereal, and I had a huge mouthful of unchewed mini wheats and milk and I started to laugh, but then my sister said something funnier, and then I thought of the most epic funny thing to say, but I was trapped in the state of laughter / trying not to spit out or choke on my food, which actually made me laugh even harder because of the situation I was in. Then my brother looks at me like WTF is wrong with you, and I just point at him, and then my sister, and then myself, and it was so stupid, and I just fell to the floor crying with laughter. I can almost see you crying and rolling around still crunching. Made me chuckle. Thanks. The last time I saw my great grandma Claudine, she was 98 and had horrible dementia. She did not recognize my grandmother, her daughter, and it was honestly very sad. We were going to her house because my papa, her husband, died and we needed to go to his funeral. Before we left we got a car wash and one of the guys there gave us a red carnation. It was a weird promotion or something I think. But after a 10+ hour drive we made it to her house. I rushed inside and overheard my grandma begging my great grandma to remember her because my grandma had recently been diagnosed with stage 3 ovarian cancer. She kicked its ass and beat it. I gave her a second and knocked, then walked in. The very first thing my great grandma said when she saw me was Adoris, that my beautiful *my name. I nearly cried just from that. My grandma was super happy she remembered me, but sad she did not remember her, and decided I should spend time with her alone. She went off to go get some food I think, but I don't really know. So it was just me and my grandma. We chatted for a while and the inevitable question finally came up. *me**. Who was that woman in here earlier? Is your daughter? *grandma**. Really? Why does her hair look so weird? It is a wig. She is bald now. Cold no it bring myself to tell her daughter had cancer. Even thought she would know it remember. She giggled a bit then attempted to pull me in and said I'm gonna steal her wig. I laughed. She cold no it walk or lift her own arms on her own, let alone snatch a wig right off of my grandmother's head. After about an hour my tummy started to grumble, so I called my grandma back in and went to the kitchen for some potatoes. After maybe 5 minutes I heard my grandma scream. I was afraid my great grandma finally had died and rushed in, but it wasn't that at all. My great grandma did it. She ripped the wig right off of my grandmother's head. She told her to come close to whisper a secret, and with all her might snatched it. She went on to live in a care home and got into many more antics, and would call once a week begging me to steal her away and start a traveling band. The first time my daughter spoke an intelligible word, she woke up in the morning and looking at me said Papa. The funny part is that my wife had, according to her, the perfect plan. She would say, repeatedly, to the baby, the word Papa. Then, supposedly, when the baby would need anything she would call me and not my wife. It worked until certain point. Now she's jealous that the first word was Papa. But when the baby wants something she calls for her mommy. Most of the times. Lol. I like her plan. Me and my friends sitting around talking and laughing for one of the last times before university ended and we all got split up. Why don't things just stay the same? Sometimes I feel like me and my college friends are drifting apart. We never really seem to talk anymore. Reach out to them. You'll both be glad you did. I've tried. Like we still text each other in a group chat, but anytime I ask if they want to talk over the phone or video chat they just ignore my message or give me non-replies. / we used to talk on the phone all the time when we were busy with classes and internships. But now when we all have more time than ever from this quarantine they just seem too busy. Watching my aunt make tamales with her sisters and mom on Christmas Eve. She was so happy, and it was when she was at her best, laughing and smiling. Fun times. I miss her a lot. When my sister was on my iPad, we were FaceTiming. My baby brother came into my room, saw my sister, and kissed my iPad. Pretty sure it was a dream or something I imagined. I remember walking down a dirt road with heavy swamp vegetation. Reeds mostly, growing on both sides and dense tree branches hanging over the road around 10 AM in the end of June with patches of sunshine barely making it to the dirt below. I was a kid and was walking with a friend. It's where I go when I need to calm down, if I remember it. For some reason, this one made me feel the most content. I love those abstract, barely real memories. Back in college, I was eating at Chipotle with my friend Anthony, who is typically a pretty suave guy. As we were talking, he was alternating between taking sips of his beer and dumping Tabasco on his burrito before taking a bite. He gets lost in our conversation and I see him grab the Tabasco and start bringing it to his lips before catching himself and grabbing his beer instead. Then I see him do it again, getting even closer to his mouth this time before realizing his mistake. He laughs it off. Another minute goes by and, exceeding all expectations, he grabs his beer and pours it into his burrito. Thanks for watching the video. Please like and subscribe for more content.